When I went in there and looked at him, I had to go out of the room because I still can't accept it. But I still love him just like, 'cause he's my son. He's my only son. And how can I stop loving him?
Shock, denial, and pain. Those were the initial reactions when this mother and daughter learned their only son and only brother had AIDS. It's a tragedy that has drawn a family closer together at a time when friends have been quick to abandon. 27-year-old Don Parker spends long days in isolation now at Oklahoma Memorial Hospital, wondering how long he'll be able to fight off the disease for which there is no cure, the one that has banished him to isolation and subjected him to a public that lacks compassion for the sick out of fear. Don Parker is not gay. He's a former IV drug user whose immune system is falling apart. The physical toll of the AIDS will be death. The mental toll in the interim is hard to even comprehend. How does it make you feel?
Makes me feel like I'm some kind of reject. To be honest, it makes me feel like I'm some kind of reject from society, you know.
He looks like a vegetable to me. I mean, he just used to be so cheerful and open-minded. He's not that open-minded anymore. He's just so skinny.
I found out about it really hit. And when I looked at him today for the first time, I told Kathy, I said, "Is this really Donald?" And I showed you the picture of how he looked before. He don't even look like himself. I said, "Is this really Donald?" And it still hurts, you know, to see him like this.
I just don't understand.
Family members struggle to cope, while Don Parker looks for courage and strength to fight.
Just the thought of people that's not afraid, you know, that helps me out. It makes me want to fight it some more.
Terry Cook, News 4.
We are dealing with a disease that is moving into the heterosexual community through two routes: intravenous drug users and promiscuous sex.
Until March of this year, the deadly virus spread into the population through the nation's blood banks. But that vehicle of transmission is now under containment in most, but not all, blood centers. Oklahoma City was one of the first to begin using a new blood test known as HTLV3 on all donated blood. The test can pick up the presence of an AIDS antibody in the blood. If it shows up, it means the donor has been exposed to AIDS. 90% of the nation's hemophiliacs who received blood products prior to March of this year have been infected. The test as yet is not being used at all blood banks, although the Reagan administration plans to draft a federal law requiring it by next summer. Where it is used, transfusion-associated AIDS is no longer a problem, but fear of contracting the disease is still there, even amongst healthcare workers.
Do I worry about it? I think everyone's worried about AIDS right now. But as far as here in the lab, you know, we already do hepatitis testing, so we're trained to be very careful.
There is fear in the community, too. AIDS is spreading like wildfire in the homosexual population through bisexuals, prostitutes, IV drug users, and promiscuous heterosexuals. They are showing up for blood screening clinics in growing numbers to find out if they have been exposed.
Well, it came back positive, and we did it 3 times. And do you understand what that means?
Yes, I do.
Physicians don't know a lot about what that means, except to say that he has been exposed to AIDS. Whether he'll get AIDS eventually or just carry the virus with him for a long time is unknown.
I think we need to get people down here. If you are positive on this, then you know you need to alter your lifestyle, that you don't need to knowingly infect anyone else. And if you come down here and you're tested negative, you'll know that all of this has passed you up and you need to do whatever you can to keep yourself that way.
The HTLV3 test is the only way to pick up the disease in its early stages. The incubation period can be as long as 5 years, during which there are no symptoms. When the symptoms begin to appear, the AIDS patients feel fatigued, will often have skin lesions, usually dark gray or purplish in color. They'll feel swelling in the glands around the neck and under the arms, and oftentimes experience night sweats. Once the disease takes hold, pneumonia and cancers usually set in.
I'm taking it, I think, a lot better than most people this early in the stage. Although there are periods, like last night I cried myself asleep, but I have to look at it one day at a time.
We cry with you.
Oh, I know.
AIDS patients have few places to turn for emotional support. Carol Walton, an epidemiologist, works with them, lending an ear and any expertise she can to their questions about dying.
It's a spooky disease. I mean, there's no doubt it's a spooky disease. And it's a disease that carries a stigma. You know, we have a lot of people here that are dying of a lot of different things, but none of them carry the stigma of AIDS. And I think people would almost rather have anything than have AIDS.
The AIDS task force feels that this kind of information needs to be brought to our children in school. They need to be aware of it. The concern is that there are groups who feel that these kinds of issues should not be discussed. And I think that's a serious problem, and it needs to be looked at. To deny it or put our heads in the sand is simply going to increase the spread of this disease.
In the meantime, institutions like UCLA here in Los Angeles are doing all they can to find a cure for AIDS. That's the subject of tomorrow's report. Terre, Cook News 4 in Los Angeles.
What area code are you calling from? Where did you hear about the hotline?
The hotline is staffed around the clock at AIDS Project LA. It's been deluged with calls as the number of reported cases of AIDS continues to grow. The calls come in at the rate of 8,000 a month, almost double what they were in July. The money needed to buy some answers about the disease has been slow in coming.
The money that we have been able to raise has come from the private sector for care. We are fortunate in living in Los Angeles in that the entertainment industry is really coming to the fore. But, you know, in Dallas, in Wichita, in Des Moines, they're facing real problems. And I suspect we'll not have adequate funding on state and local levels until people perceive that this is a disease that affects the general population.
UCLA is considered one of the larger research facilities for AIDS in the country, and yet the National Institutes of Health have contributed a mere $3.7 million for that research. Most of the studies done thus far into AIDS have been in the laboratory setting. Medical science has learned a great deal about the virus itself, how to identify it, and an understanding of what makes it work and why. Researchers now, with the aid of high technology, can pick out characteristics of damaged immune systems and follow the progressive breakdown of the entire system. It's the work done here that will save the lives of Oklahoma's AIDS patients, 15 of whom have already died. Some antiviral drugs have been successful in arresting the virus in a laboratory setting, namely HPA-23, currently being used in France, and another drug called Suramin. Both could be on the market in the United States within the year. But researchers here say it could be 5 years before a cure is found.
Unfortunately, from a clinical standpoint, progress has not been as rapid as in the laboratory. What we find are that patients, some of whom do respond to treatment, the majority of them don't. And as a result, we aren't nearly where we would like to be. Once an effective antiviral agent is found, then clinical trials will need to be instituted to see whether these things are going to be useful. It may be that one will require more than one agent to arrest the virus and to cure AIDS. It's very possible that in addition to an antiviral drug, they will require an immune-enhancing agent, such as an interferon or interleukin-2 or some of these other biologic-enhancing agents.
Until the answers are found, those diagnosed can only wait to die and wonder what kind of a death it will be and how much life they still have to live. Those are questions that this man asks himself daily. Another victim who waits for a cure and hopes it comes along in time for him.
All I can do is say my prayers every day.
What do you pray for?
That it's really not as bad as I think it is, and that it can be prolonged for quite some time, because I'm not ready to die. I'm really not.
Unfortunately, from a clinical standpoint, progress has not been as rapid as in the laboratory. What we find are that patients, some of whom do respond to treatment, the majority of them don't. And as a result, we aren't nearly where we would like to be. Once an effective antiviral agent is found, then clinical trials will need to be instituted to see whether these things are going to be useful. It may be that one will require more than one agent to arrest the virus and to cure AIDS. It's very possible that in addition to an antiviral drug, they will require an immune-enhancing agent, such as an interferon or interleukin-2 or some of these other biologic-enhancing agents.